Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and nothing external has changed. The same apartment, the same bank account, the same unanswered message still sitting there. Yet somehow the way the world responds to you feels entirely different. Opportunities you were chasing suddenly feel like they're chasing you. The conversation you were rehearsing in your head flows effortlessly. That stuck place inside loosens, and what looked impossible yesterday starts unfolding without force. People call this quantum jumping, and I want to show you why it's not just a poetic idea, but a very real process your body and mind are already wired for. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people think they're waiting for reality to move before they can. Waiting for the job to say yes, the person to text back, the bill to somehow resolve. But underneath that waiting is an assumption that you are a fixed point and the universe shifts around you. That's backwards. The universe is more like a mirror. It doesn't show you what you want. It reflects who you are being right now. The problem is, being doesn't feel like a lever we can pull. You've probably tried affirmations, visualizations, pushing positive thoughts, only to end up exhausted because life didn't move in sync. That's because identity runs deeper than thoughts. It's in the nervous system, in the micro signals of your body, in the silent way you walk into a room. That's what reality is responding to. So when I talk about quantum jumping, I'm not talking about imagining yourself in some parallel world as a fantasy. I'm talking about learning how to shift the channel of your own presence, the exact frequency you're broadcasting, so that you step onto a timeline where what you've been chasing meets you naturally. And that begins with understanding a mechanism that science has already stumbled upon, but rarely connected to this: the observer effect. The observer effect is one of those strange phrases you've probably heard tossed around in documentaries or TikTok clips, but let's make it practical. In quantum physics, it simply means the act of observing something changes the outcome. A particle behaves one way when unobserved and another when you're looking at it. Now that might sound abstract, but think of your life as that experiment. The way you observe yourself, the way you hold your own identity, is shaping what reality can and cannot do in your presence. Here's where the mirror metaphor comes in. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, trying to convince the reflection to smile before you do. You wait, you strain, you plead. Nothing happens. Why? Because the reflection isn't independent. It's locked to you. The moment you change, it must change. Reality works the same way. It's not reacting to your thoughts alone, but to the embodied signal you are broadcasting through your state of being. This is why affirmations fall flat when they're spoken from tension. If you whisper, "I am abundant," while your chest is tight, your breath shallow, and your nervous system screaming scarcity, the mirror hears the deeper signal. The universe doesn't take orders from surface words. It tunes to coherence, to the harmony between thought, feeling, and physiology. So what does that mean for quantum jumping? It means the leap isn't about forcing yourself into a new life. It's about aligning the channel of your being with the version of you already living that life. You don't have to invent it. You have to tune to it. Like flipping the radio dial until you hit a frequency where the music is already playing. Think about how this shows up in subtle ways. Ever walked into a room and felt someone's energy before they said a word? That's the broadcast I'm talking about. It's not mystical, it's coherence. Your body is a transmitter, constantly signaling safety, possibility, or threat. Others pick it up. Reality reflects it back. The beauty of this is also the frustration. You can't fake it. The mirror doesn't respond to masks. It responds to shifts in your core state. That's why the process feels invisible until you finally click into it. And suddenly synchronicities line up as if the world was waiting. Now here's the twist most people miss. The observer effect isn't just about looking at reality differently. It's about observing yourself differently, embodying that new observation and letting it ripple outward. Which brings us to a myth that keeps so many people blocked. One of the biggest myths about manifestation and quantum jumping is that it's about thinking hard enough or visualizing intensely enough. People imagine that if they just focus harder, the universe will bend. But that's like standing in front of the mirror, squinting at your reflection, hoping your intensity will force it to change. The truth? Effort at the surface level often backfires because it's signaling the opposite of what you want. Let's make this real with a small but familiar scenario. Picture this. You've sent a message to someone important, maybe a potential partner, maybe a job lead, maybe a friend you've been missing. Hours pass. Silence. You check the phone again. Nothing. At first you replay the words you wrote, then you start crafting a dozen different responses in your head. Should I follow up? Should I delete the message? Should I pretend I don't care? Now pause here. What signal are you actually broadcasting in that moment? It isn't just curiosity. It's contraction. It's, I don't trust this unfolding. I'm not safe in the waiting. And the mirror reflects that back, not necessarily by controlling the person's thumbs, but by placing you on a timeline where communication feels delayed, energy feels stuck, momentum freezes. This is why quantum jumping isn't about controlling outcomes with force. It's about shifting the reflection by shifting what you're embodying. In that phone-checking moment, if you can regulate your body, soften your breath, lean back, remind yourself of your worth without the reply, your signal changes. You stop broadcasting lack and start embodying stability. Often, it's precisely when you do this that the message comes through, not because you forced it, but because the mirror no longer had to show you your own insecurity. The myth, then, is this. People believe manifestation is about convincing the mirror. In reality, it's about convincing yourself at the level beneath thought. It's not about pushing positivity to cover up fear. It's about allowing your nervous system to settle into coherence so that the reflection has no choice but to follow. And here's the paradox. The more you cling, the more you push the timeline away. The moment you let go and embody safety, the jump happens almost without you noticing. You didn't change the other person, you changed the channel you were tuned to. But here's the catch, and it's one most people overlook. To actually hold that new signal, your nervous system has to feel safe enough to trust it. Which means the next layer of this process isn't about thinking at all. It's about wiring your body into coherence. Think about the last time you were truly anxious, maybe before a job interview, or while waiting for test results, or even standing in line when you were late for something important. Notice how your body reacted. Shallow breath, tight chest, maybe sweaty palms. Now compare that to the last time you felt deeply safe, lying in bed after a long day, laughing with someone you love, or walking in nature with no rush. The difference isn't subtle. It's night and day. And here's the key. Your nervous system is the gatekeeper for every quantum jump you will ever make. When your body is locked in fight or flight, you're broadcasting survival. Your mirror, reality, can only reflect urgency and struggle back to you. That's why people get stuck trying to manifest from desperation. The signal is scrambled. But when your system feels safe, when your heart and brain are in coherence, suddenly you're broadcasting something entirely different. Openness, stability, possibility. And the mirror has no choice but to shift. So how do you access that? Let's walk through a simple practice right now. It only takes a minute. Close your eyes if you can. Place a hand on your chest. Slow your breath, not forced. Just gently lengthen the inhale and let the exhale be a little longer. As you do, bring to mind one moment where you felt genuine ease. It could be the sound of laughter, the warmth of sunlight, or a memory where you knew everything was okay. Don't push, just let your body remember. Now imagine your heart breathing. Inhale through the heart, exhale through the heart. Let your nervous system register safety. Feel how your shoulders drop, your jaw softens. Your mind begins to unclench. This is coherence, the moment your body and mind are no longer in two different timelines. And here's the beauty. Once you anchor here, you don't have to make reality change. You've already shifted your signal. The mirror must reflect it. You can do this before you send a message, before you walk into a meeting, even while paying a bill. The context doesn't matter. What matters is the signal you're sending through your physiology. Because coherence isn't a mental trick, it's an embodied broadcast. And here's where things get even more interesting. While many people can touch this state for a moment, the real transformation happens when it stops being a temporary state and becomes who you are. That's when timelines collapse faster than you can track. Which brings us to the next layer. Why identity is the true engine of quantum jumping. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes when they first discover coherence. They treat it like a temporary hack, something they can do before a stressful moment, like deep breathing before a presentation or a quick visualization before a date. And yes, those state shifts work. They calm the nervous system, they open the field. But here's the catch: states are fleeting. They vanish as quickly as they arrive if they're not rooted in identity. Think about it. You can step into confidence for 5 minutes, but if underneath you still identify as someone who's anxious, broke, or unlucky, the mirror will keep dragging you back to that familiar reflection. You can't outbreathe the identity you're embodying at your core. This is why quantum jumping isn't about stacking more practices on top of your day. It's about asking the deeper question: who am I being across all these moments? Identity is the true tuning dial. It's not the flash of confidence before the interview. It's whether you see yourself as the kind of person who belongs in that room at all. Let's go back to the mirror metaphor. If you stand there smiling for 5 seconds and then collapse back into a frown, the reflection won't hold. But if you rewire yourself into someone who naturally carries ease, the reflection stabilizes. Reality begins to mirror a whole new baseline. This is why people often experience what they call one-time miracles, a sudden synchronicity, an unexpected gift, a brief jump, only to watch it fade, because they changed state but never updated identity. The mirror snapped back. So the real work is subtle but profound, shifting from "I'm trying to manifest abundance" to "I am someone who naturally exists in abundance." From "I'm calming my nerves before speaking" to "I am a communicator." And from "I hope I get chosen" to "I am the kind of person who chooses." That's the level where the quantum field reorganizes around you. Here's the paradox. Identity isn't something you fake. It's something you rehearse until it becomes embodied truth. You don't just say "I am." You breathe it, walk it, regulate your system until it feels safe to inhabit it. Once identity shifts, the timeline shift is inevitable. And if identity is the true engine, then the next question is wild but unavoidable. Which version of you, which timeline are you tuning into right now? If identity is the engine, then timelines are the tracks. Think of it this way. Every possible version of your life already exists, like channels on a television. You don't invent the station when you tune in. It was already broadcasting. You simply shift the dial. In the same way, the moment you embody a new identity, you align with a timeline where that version of you is already alive and moving. This is why some changes feel instant. You didn't make the universe give you something new. You shifted into the version of yourself who lives in a reality where that outcome is normal. That's what quantum jumping really means. A leap in identity that locks you onto a different channel of experience. Let me ground this with a scenario you've probably felt. Imagine walking into a job interview. Two people with the same skills can have wildly different outcomes depending on identity. One walks in rehearsing every word, terrified of being judged, identifying as someone begging for approval. The other walks in anchored in the truth. "I am someone who belongs here. This conversation is two humans exploring fit." Same resume, same questions, different timeline. The mirror reflects the identity, not the skill set alone. And here's the fascinating part. Reality doesn't argue. It doesn't sit you down to justify whether you've earned the new identity. The field simply mirrors what you're tuned to. If you identify as the version of you who has options, who is already chosen, the environment reorganizes. The interviewer feels it in your presence. Subtle micro-expressions shift. Your answers come with ease because they're no longer about survival. That's the jump. Most people miss this because they're trying to drag their old identity into a new outcome. They say, "Once I get the job, then I'll feel confident." But that's waiting for the reflection to move first. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. So here's the practice. Start noticing which timeline you're inhabiting moment to moment. Are you living the channel of scarcity, where every bill feels like a threat? Or are you tuned to stability, where money is simply a tool? Are you inhabiting the timeline where love is scarce, or the one where connection is inevitable? Identity makes the selection for you, whether or not you're aware. And once you realize that timelines aren't theoretical, they're felt, lived, and embodied, you can start rehearsing the one you want to inhabit with precision. Which brings us to the practical side, the tools for rehearsal, the daily drills that lock identity into the body until the jump is irreversible. Now that you see identity as the tuning dial, the next question is obvious. How do you actually rehearse a new identity until it feels like second nature? Because here's the truth, you don't leap once and never wobble. You practice the new timeline until your body trusts it. And trust is built through repetition, not just intention. So let me give you a toolkit. Think of these not as lofty rituals, but as drills you can drop into daily life, the way an athlete repeats motions until the body just knows. The first tool is bridge statements. These are phrases that don't leap you into disbelief, but ease you across the gap. Instead of jumping from "I'm broke" to "I'm a millionaire," which your system rejects, you soften it. "I'm learning to handle money with more stability," or "I'm beginning to notice opportunities I used to miss." Bridge statements let your nervous system adjust step by step, and each one shifts the reflection. The second tool is somatic anchors. Identity isn't just in words, it's in posture, breath, and movement. Try this. Stand as the version of you who already belongs in the life you desire. Shoulders back, jaw soft, breathing steady. Walk across a room as that person. This is how the mirror learns what signal to reflect. The third tool is what I call embodiment drills. Pick one small daily action and perform it as the future you. Drink water as that person. Answer an email as that person. Pay a bill as that person. The action itself isn't special, it's the frequency behind it that retrains identity. And here's the fourth, rehearsal through coherence practice. Each day spend a few minutes breathing into your heart, like we did earlier, but this time imagine yourself observing the world through the lens of the new identity. Not wishing, not forcing, simply letting your physiology learn what it feels like to live on that channel. Put together, here's your mini protocol. 1. Start with coherence breath to regulate. 2. Use one bridge statement to shift thought. 3. Anchor the shift in your body through posture. 4. Rehearse it in a tiny daily action. This is how quantum jumps stop being abstract and start being lived. You're not trying to force the mirror anymore. You're simply embodying the signal moment by moment until it stabilizes. And let me ask you something here, because this is where it gets real. Have you noticed that the moment you stopped gripping, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. But here's what most people run into. Even with tools like these, they get pulled off track by urgency, by split signals, by the temptation to overcontrol. And that's exactly where we need to go next. Here's the hard truth. Even with the best tools, most people fall into 3 traps that pull them out of alignment and stall their quantum jumps. These traps aren't random, they're built into how we've been conditioned to survive. So let's name them, and more importantly, let's learn how to transmute them. The first trap is urgency. You feel the bill is due, the deadline is close, the opportunity will vanish if you don't grab it now. Urgency compresses your nervous system into scarcity. You broadcast panic. And what does the mirror do? It reflects more urgency, more situations where you're scrambling, rushing, barely catching up. The antidote isn't pretending the urgency isn't real. The antidote is to expand time inside your body, slow your breath, deliberately stretch your exhale. Even taking 60 seconds to anchor coherence before paying that bill changes the signal from "I'm drowning" to "I can handle this." And the mirror adjusts accordingly. The second trap is split signals. This is when part of you is saying, "I want love," but another part whispers, "But what if I get hurt?" Or you say, "I want more money," while your subconscious mutters, "But money means stress." The mirror can't reflect a clean picture when you're broadcasting static. The fix here isn't to shame yourself for the conflict. It's to bring both voices into the light. Write them down, acknowledge them. Then create bridge statements that include safety. "I'm open to love at a pace that feels safe," or "I allow money to arrive in ways that support my peace." When the signal unifies, the reflection becomes sharp. The third trap is over-control. This is maybe the sneakiest one. You meditate, visualize, journal, but underneath it all you're gripping, trying to micromanage the how and when. Over-control sends the signal, "I don't trust," and the mirror reflects mistrust right back, delivering delays, blocks, resistance. The way through isn't to stop caring. It's to surrender the how while staying anchored in the who. You don't loosen your vision, you loosen your grip. That's when the mirror has space to move in ways you couldn't script. These three traps, urgency, split signals, over-control, are where most people give up. They think the method doesn't work, when in reality, the mirror was simply showing them their own contraction. Once you see that, the obstacle becomes the doorway. And the key isn't fixing these in rare sacred moments. It's practicing coherence in the middle of ordinary life, where the signal is constantly being broadcast. Which leads us to something most people never realize. Daily integration is the secret engine of quantum jumping. If you really want to understand quantum jumping, stop looking for it only in big, dramatic breakthroughs. The real shift shows up in the small, ordinary places where you used to abandon yourself. Because reality is listening to your broadcast all day, not just during morning meditation. Take walking, for example. Most people move through the world carrying the weight of their to-do list, their shoulders hunched forward, their breath clipped. That walk is a signal. I am under pressure. Life is heavy. Now shift it. Slow your pace. Breathe into your chest. Let your spine lengthen as if the version of you on the new timeline already owns their presence. That walk transmits a completely different broadcast. The mirror listens, or eating. When you shovel food down quickly, body tense, the signal is survival. But when you pause, breathe, taste, when you let nourishment land, the signal is sufficiency. That coherence ripples outward. Money, relationships, opportunities respond to that baseline of "I have enough, I am safe." Even conversations are a chance to quantum jump. How often do you catch yourself half listening, already rehearsing what you'll say next? That's the signal of disconnection. But if you slow down, regulate your system, and fully inhabit the identity of someone who is grounded and open, the conversation transforms. People feel seen. You step onto the timeline of connection, and the mirror reflects relationships that deepen instead of fray. The key here is to make coherence a lifestyle, not an event. Don't confine it to your journal or your meditation cushion. Practice while scrolling on your phone. Practice while doing dishes. Practice while driving. These tiny integrations accumulate into an identity shift that no longer collapses under pressure. And here's the unexpected gift. When you embody coherence in the mundane, the extraordinary starts to feel normal. Synchronicities appear not as shocking miracles, but as natural consequences of who you've become. Opportunities meet you in the grocery store. Insights drop while you're brushing your teeth. Breakthroughs arrive during casual conversations. You realize you're no longer trying to quantum jump. You're simply living on a different frequency altogether. But daily integration is just the beginning, because once you stabilize coherence in the ordinary, something bigger happens. Entire domains of your life begin to reorganize. Your relationships, your creativity, even your health. And that expansion is where the quantum leap becomes undeniable. Once coherence stops being a trick and starts becoming your baseline, the ripple effect is unmistakable. Whole areas of your life begin to shift, not because you pushed harder, but because your signal upgraded. Remember, the mirror doesn't compartmentalize. When you tune to a new identity, every reflection begins to reorganize. Take relationships. If you've been living on the channel of "I'm unworthy," you'll unconsciously attract situations that confirm it. Partners who keep you guessing, friends who drain your energy. But when you shift into the identity of someone who is inherently worthy, your presence starts broadcasting safety and self-respect. The mirror reflects back partners who meet you with clarity, friends who nourish you, conversations that feel reciprocal instead of lopsided, or creativity. When you live in the channel of self-doubt, every idea feels fragile. You second-guess, procrastinate, abandon projects halfway, but shift the dial into the identity of someone who trusts their creative signal, and suddenly, inspiration flows. You find yourself entering states of deep focus where ideas click effortlessly. The mirror doesn't withhold, it amplifies the channel you've claimed. Now let's look at health. Picture this scenario. you've been facing a persistent health challenge. Maybe it's fatigue, maybe chronic tension. On the old timeline, every symptom is a battle. You identify as someone broken or at war with your own body. But when you shift identity into someone who is healing, someone whose body is an ally, the experience changes. You start making choices that support recovery without forcing them. Rest feels allowed instead of guilty. Small improvements multiply. It's not magic. It's the mirror reorganizing to match your new broadcast. And then there's purpose. Many people live on the timeline of confusion. I don't know why I'm here. But when you shift into coherence, purpose isn't something you chase. It arises naturally because the signal of your life is no longer scrambled. The people you meet, the opportunities that surface, the directions you feel pulled toward, they align with the identity you've chosen. The power of this expansion is that it compounds. Each domain that shifts reinforces the others. Better health stabilizes your creativity. Nourishing relationships amplify your purpose. Your upgraded signal becomes a network of coherence. And the mirror? It multiplies the effect in ways you could never plot out logically. But there's a deeper layer still, one that goes beyond personal goals or even daily life. It's the spiritual dimension, the realization that quantum jumping isn't just you rearranging your life, but life itself expressing through you. And that dimension asks you to embrace a paradox most people resist: surrender as the highest form of strength. Up until now, we've been talking about quantum jumping in personal terms, your nervous system, your identity, your timelines. But there's a point where the leap stops feeling like something you're doing and starts feeling like something flowing through you. This is where the process shifts from psychological to spiritual, from technique to surrender. Think about it. If reality is a mirror, then you're not just adjusting your reflection. You are also part of the mirror itself. The field isn't separate from you. Your identity, your coherence, your embodied signal, they are the universe experiencing itself through your channel. That's why so many mystics describe manifestation not as control, but as alignment with something larger. Here's the paradox that blows people's minds. Surrender doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful. Because when you stop trying to micromanage the how and when, you free the mirror to reorganize in ways your limited mind could never design. Surrender isn't giving up. It's stepping back into coherence with the intelligence that holds the timelines in the first place. You felt this before, even if you didn't call it spiritual. Remember the moments where life surprised you, where something you deeply needed arrived through a doorway you never would have predicted. That wasn't random. That was the mirror responding once you stopped gripping. It was the field moving you onto a track that matched your essence more than your strategy. This doesn't mean you sit still and wait. You still act, but your actions are no longer fueled by fear. They arise naturally, like exhaling after an inhale. That's why some people call it flow, others call it grace. Whatever name you use, the mechanism is the same. Coherence between who you are and the intelligence running through everything. And when you touch this dimension, the old obsession with proof dissolves. You no longer demand evidence before you believe. You realize the mirror was never against you. It was always reflecting your state. From here you begin to walk differently, not trying to convince the field but embodying the field. Not chasing timelines but allowing yourself to collapse into the one that feels most alive. Which brings us to the final piece of this journey: how to tie everything together into one simple but radical resolution. The closing of the loop. The final leap into a mirror that can never reflect the old story again. So here we are, at the end of the journey, and maybe you've noticed something. Nothing I've shared has been about adding more effort, more strain, or more forcing. It's been about a return, a remembering, the recognition that you were never actually separate from the reality you long for. The mirror has been waiting for you to shift, and the moment you do, it reflects instantly. Think about the mirror one last time. You've stood in front of it before, trying to wrestle with the reflection, pleading for it to move first. That's how most people live, waiting for the job offer before they feel worthy, waiting for the reply before they feel chosen, waiting for the money before they feel secure. But the reflection can't move first. It never has. It never will. You are the origin point. The mirror has no choice but to follow. Quantum jumping, then, is not about escaping your life or fantasizing about another version of you in some distant universe. It's about remembering that all versions already exist right here, and your identity is the tuning dial. When you shift who you are being, not in thought alone, but in breath, posture, nervous system, and action, you step onto a timeline where what you've been chasing is already true. And the beautiful part? You don't need to wait for giant leaps to see this. Every small rehearsal counts. Every time you soften urgency, unify a split signal, release control, or integrate coherence into something as simple as walking or eating, you're adjusting the signal. You're jumping timelines without even realizing it. So the invitation now is simple. Stop asking the mirror to move first. Breathe into coherence. Rehearse the identity of the one who already belongs in the life you desire, and then live from that place. Watch as the reflection reorganizes. Watch as the station you've been tuning toward becomes so clear that the old static timelines fade like background noise. This isn't magic, it's mechanics. The mirror can only ever reflect what you are embodying. And once you know that, the question is no longer, will it work? The question becomes, which channel do I choose to inhabit right now? Because the jump isn't in the future, the jump is always here, and the reflection is already waiting.